Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Season 3 League of Legends Southeast European Championship. We're going to be jumping into the quarterfinals. Thanks for sticking around with us through the technical difficulties. And now it's time to face up between Vasilopita taking on OverClocked in this quarterfinal match.
I think it's going to be very interesting. I mean, we had some technical technical issues, as you said. I'm having a hard time finding my words, and finally now we are in this game, and I think it's going to be very interesting because a lot of these players are some very highly placed players in solo queue.
Oh, absolutely. These teams are the best of the best. We've got Diamond 1s up against Masters. You know, it's fantastic. Going to be a very high showcase of skill. We're already seeing some of these bands fly out. Echo and Brom banned out by Vasilopita, Kindred and Gragas coming out by Overclocked, and expecting some more of these highly contested meta picks at the moment.
And I'm glad to see Kindred finally being banned. The first two games we had today, she weren't banned and she weren't picked up either, and she's just such a strong champion in my opinion that you have to ban her away. But there is a lot of jungle focus coming over on the side of Overclocked, and I'm glad to see all of these junglers being banned away because they are all some very strong junglers in the current meta.
Absolutely, you can see that already. Vasilopita immediately lock in that Nidalee, which is going to go over to Lidden in the jungle, and so nice pickup by them. It's going to be a Poppy instant locked in by Overclocked. Going to follow it up with the Elise as well.
So we have to keep in mind that Poppy has been nerfed here in patch 6.7, so she's still very strong, but she is a little bit nerfed, and therefore her laning phase is not as strong as it used to be. But that doesn't really make her a bad pick, because she is still a very high priority pick and is one of the best top laners right now. However, the Elise pick is something I'm a little bit interested in, because we don't see Elise too much in the jungle anymore, but she is the best pick you can get in the jungle now that both Kindred, Nidalee, Graves and Gragas has been taken away.
Maybe a bit of personal preference there. You know, Elise is strong. Nidalee can be very strong as well. Really just depends on who the champion is in the hands of. But it is a nice pickup by Overclocked. It means that they're going to have that early game pressure in the form of Elise as well. Going to see an Alistair and a Corki now locked in by Vasilopita. And on the other side, a Morgana and a Kindred as well locked in, and it's always great to see Kindred locked in. It's quite a fun champion to watch.
Yes, that is definitely true. And over on the side of Vasi, they have a really strong poke composition right now. They have both Varus, Corki, and Nidalee, and then they have such a strong front line. So their team is going for full poke, and they have a lot of mid game and late game times as well, because they have a double AD carry composition, and with Corki getting the Trinity Force in the mid game, it's going to be very interesting to see this game.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and they've got the Maokai as well to follow up on a team fight, as well as the Alistair. Going to give them a lot of initiation, a lot of disengage as well. A nice little front line for them. So it's a really well thought out composition. Going to be probably, I'll have to see actually if it's the Corki in the mid lane or the Varus in the mid lane. They could go either way. Does mean that they've kind of got that flex between them, so that this counter pick of Overclocked, whatever champion they do decide to go for, looking like a Zed at the moment, and it will be a Zed, they can decide, alright, who do we want to send up against that, a Corki or a Varus? They've got that option.
I love what Overclockers are doing right now, because they're going for a full pick composition, and the way to shut down a poke composition is just to go for a full fight. You just want to shove them down the drain. You just want to fight them all the time. You want to kill them. You want to force them to fall behind, and that's exactly what you can do with this team composition. Kalista, Zed, Elise, even Poppy and Morgana. All of these have some CC. They have a way of picking people out of position and forcing fights, and that's exactly what they want to be looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. The Morgana is going to help try and keep this Kindred nice and alive, try and I guess soak up some of the poke that's coming out of Vasilopita, but it'll be really interesting to see how OverClocked play their team composition, because they've got the Morgana, they've got the Elise as well, so that's a lot of single target CC that they can throw at someone, the binding and the cocoon, and then Hypnix on this Poppy will have the ability to go really deep and try and lock up someone, maybe stun up Varus or Corki up against the wall. We do see now that we're in the delay, the spectator delay, you can see that like Varus has taken cleanse on that champion, so it was respecting, I guess, the death markers from one kicked man on that Zed. But also in a team fight, you get locked up by a cocoon or a binding that could literally spell death for you in an instant. So having that cleanse is going to help. I wouldn't be surprised if pretty much everyone who is a tank, a damage dealer, being the Nidalee, the Varus, and the Corki, rush a QSS so that they can break out of the CC or break out of the death mark if Zed decides to ult them.
It would definitely bring them more control of the game. Varus and Corki are what you would normally call control mid laners. So obviously Corki is going to the bottom lane, but we normally see him being played in mid lane. So that's why I call him a control mid laner. But they just bring so much control to the table because they have all of that poke necessary to start sieges, to control a full lane. So right now for Vasi, they need to look at not falling behind in the early game, because then they will lose a lot of their poke, they will not have the necessary damage to start sieges, and Maokai will basically not be able to do anything because of course he will be the front line, but his team members will either be dead or just won't bring any damage that'll help him be that effective frontliner.
Yeah, he's really reliant on the poke damage coming out before an engage is started. So I think we're going to kind of see maybe two different strategies coming out of both these teams. OverClocked are going to want to try and dive in and try and start a fight as quickly as possible, whereas Vasilopita, they're going to want to try and poke a lot before they go for the fight, because they've got that Maokai, they've got the Alistair to engage when they need to, but they want to try and chunk out the side of OverClocked as much as possible, so that fight will be in their favor.
Yeah, that is definitely true, and OverClocked, I've already said this, but they have a really good team composition at just fighting all the time against Vasi, because you can just keep fighting. Fate's Call will allow you to come in, engage, you have Cocoon, you have Dark Binding, you have all of the CC that'll be able to come out from Poppy as well. So basically their team composition is just full fighting. They just want to keep fighting, and they even have the hard CC and burst to do so. So if they don't fall behind in the early game, then they should be in a good spot. But they definitely don't want to go even either. They want to have at least a little bit of a lead going into the mid game. They obviously want to shut down a bit of the damage that will come out of Vasi, because Vasi, if they just go even, then they will be in the best spot in this game, because then, yes, OverClocked will be able to hard engage onto them, but they definitely won't be able to unsiege the siege, if we can say it that way.
I guess you could put it that way. Going to be loading into the game very shortly. Big game on this. This is the game that could legitimately be a finals because of the high quality, I guess, opponents that are coming out of it. Majority of these players are masters. The rest of them are Diamond 1, just trying to get into masters. So all these players, they're playing on champions that they played a decent amount of times in solo queue. So this is a game to watch out for. Watch for Hypnix on this Poppy. He's played this champion a lot. He's probably played this matchup a decent amount of times, and if he's able to get ahead with the ganks coming from Elise, then that Poppy could become a very scary threat. But we will be loading into the game. This is, of course, the quarterfinals of the ESL Southeast European Championship. They're trying to get into Season 3. Is a bit of a pause coming out. They're just going to update their settings real quick. before they get into this game, want to make sure that they've got their smart cast on, maybe range indicators as well. Who knows? But we'll give them just a second to sort that on out.
Yeah, it's always nice to start a game with a pause because that allows us to talk a little bit about. Yeah, yes, it allows us to talk a little bit about the lane matchups. So, if we start in the top lane, we have the Maokai against the Poppy, and I love Poppy, and I think this is a skill matchup because you obviously Poppy can fight a lot against Maokai, but I just feel like Maokai with his passive Zap Magic is going to have so much sustain against Poppy, and you can even see that he knows this because he bought the Doran's Ring, which means that he wants to have some extra fighting potential. He also has the pots for sustain, and Poppy is going to be using so many abilities that his passive will be stacking up very fast, because whenever he's close to an ability that is being used, then his passive will be stacking up, and it doesn't take too many abilities before his passive is fully stacked.
Yeah, you know, it's how you start on Maokai. You've got that passive for the early sustain, so you take the Doran's Ring, it gives you a bit of health, a bit of mana regen, and it's going to give you a bit of damage as well. So it's without it, Maokai doesn't hit for anything. He's actually he hits less than a twig. So it's kind of needed, that Doran's Ring. We'll see what he builds it into. Some Maokais might grab a second one for a bit of extra damage, or they might start building towards a Sunfire's Cape, a Rod of Ages, even the Righteous Glory. It all depends on what Eternal Rage feels like going for. He is going to maybe start a bit of a lane swap. See that the Corki Alistair heading up to the top lane, going to take this Grump, and the stacking Sapling. So this is going to be the first lane swap we're going to see in this championship, initiated by Vasilopita.
Yeah, so with a lane swap coming out, I actually really like this because Kalista and Morgana can be very devastating. Corki does bring a lot of damage with his Phosphorus Bomb, but Morgana is simply just better than Alistar in a lane.
Look at Poppy.
Yes, yeah, and even Poppy is in this game. She's going to be having a hard time because she is going to be zoned away from the minions, which means that she has now to run to her jungler to get a little bit of experience, get a little bit of gold, and I like this lane swap. We're probably also going to be seeing a fast push now coming into the top lane, because it was initiated by Vasi, and they are the ones that have the momentum going for them, because they are already very fast in their clearing as well.
Yeah, we're going to see Eternal Rage. He's had this double jungle this whole time, whereas Hypnix, he went to lane, didn't realize the lane swap was happening, and then had to run off to try and help out the Elise in the jungle. So now that they're onto this blue buff, they're going to give it on over to the Nidalee, and I would assume that the two people who are the top in the jungle, they're going to roam up and try and help out with this lane swap. We do actually see that Hypnix has already made his way down to the bot lane, so he's going to be helping out, zoning that wave off his minion wave so that they can focus on pushing this turret. So it does mean that actually, considering that this lane swap was initiated by Vasilopita, it has been relatively well managed by OverClocked. They've got their jungler and top laner onto the turret before Vasilopita has, and it actually means they're going to take the turret first. They're not actually going to get the lane to bounce. They're actually going to continue pushing by the looks of it, and actually try and maybe put some pressure onto the second tier turret. So considering that they are playing very reactively at the moment, trying to react to what Vasilopita has done, they're taking control of this game and then being very proactive in their play.
Yeah, a very good adaptation to that lane swap. We did first see Hypnix having a little bit of trouble not knowing that the lane swap were coming, but now OverClockers, they just keep pushing. They are actually adapting really good to this, because they have the momentum. They took over the momentum, and they just set up the waves so much better than Vasi did, because they were able to put down a lot of damage before the jungler and the top laner were able to come, and they were also able to have a fair amount of creeps there allowing them to keep pushing.
This is really interesting now. Look, Eternal Rage is met, come down to the bot lane. He's going to try and hold this turret off. He's level 3 and he's a Maokai, so if he had a bit of range, this probably could have worked. Maybe an Echo could have done this. Eternal Rage not quite able to zone off everyone from the turret. Has to be careful. So the turret does end up going down. Vasilopita looks like they should be able to get the tier 2 turret as well. Hipponix is decided to do the same thing, but it hasn't really worked out for OverClocked as well. So interesting stuff happening, adaptations all around. You know, if Eternal Range was on a ranged champion, let's say an Echo who could hit the wave before it reached the turret, then maybe sending him away would have worked, would have allowed them to push OverClocked off the turret. But in the end, both outer turrets go down, so 2 turrets already in this lane swap. And now we have to see where the teams decide to go. If they're going to try and group up in another lane and try and push that down, maybe swap the lane swap back across the map, or if they're just going to set up standard lanes and go from there. Kind of looking at the moment like they're going to swap the lane swap over. Ooh, a flash over the wall. They're going to go into Deathworm. It gets immediately cleansed out though, so Summoner for Summoner, and maybe a bit of a misplay actually from Genre Shadow. Should have known that Deathworm had that cleanse. And cleanse is it's on a decent, like a pretty short cooldown. It's going to be up in 200 seconds. So that flash, however, that's going to be up in 300 seconds. So the summoner's not really traded very well.
Definitely a better trade for Vasilopita than for OverClocked. And as you said, basically the 2 lane swaps evens out, and now we are going to be seeing standard lanes, but it is Vasilopita that has the better setup in the standard lane, because they will be able to put down more damage onto this bottom outer turret for OverClocked, as they just have such a big minion wave there, and it's not even Obligatia won't be able to come to the bottom lane and help to relieve some of this momentum, some of the pressure, and at least even roaming behind the jungle. So we might see a dive coming in with the help of that Alistar.
Very possibly. Nilly is sitting there. Big wave in the top lane, but Garvin was actually able to deal with that wave in the bot lane very well, and in fact it's actually led to him getting a bit of a CS lead. He already built it up. It's going to be about 46 CS lead, based on the fact that wave was extremely big, and Callista can CS under turret pretty well with the Ren stacks. Kind of like what Fidiaz is doing in the mid lane. He's kind of just sitting there. He was sitting on a ward, unfortunately, but he knows that the cleanse is down from Deathworm, and Deathmark is available now for one kick man, which means that if he was able to get a cocoon onto the Varus, that would be a dead Varus, theoretically. There's the engage. It gets blocked out by the Black Shield. Now they know Nidalee is here. This could be the dive coming in. Binding Lens onto Unlucky Poro. General Shadow is doing a good job of zoning Nidalee away. Looks like Vasilopita know that they've been beat on this attempt. They're going to give up the pressure and let Nidalee go back to the jungle.
And that Dark Binding really saves that dive for OverClocked, because with that... Oh, wait, actually, Nidalee's coming to the top lane.
Yeah, this is going to be bad. Eternal Rage thinks he's winning this fight, has the ultimate available on Maokai, but he's not going to really be able to get the damage off. First Blood going over to Elise, very, very close. Burns his Summoner as well, trying to get away from Elise, but it wasn't quite enough. And that's a nice roam up by Fidiaz to give Poppy the support she needed.
Definitely a nice roam, and a bit of a no extension from Eternal Range.
Oh, trouble here. Zed has seen an opportunity, looking for the death mark. It's gonna pop. One kick man picks up a kill onto a stray in Italy, and that's the red buff going over to one kick man. That is 100% worth for this Zed.
Really well played by one kick man. It was nice to see him know that his opportunity were there to flash in. To W there in, use his ignite and then flash after to get the kill. Really well played, and now with one kick man getting a kill and Fidesh also getting a kill, both of these early game champions will be able to most likely snowball the game against this very immobile team composition over on the side of Vasilopita.
Yeah, it allows them to take a little bit of control of the momentum, because as we said in Champion Select, Vasilopita's aim is to extend team fights out to try and prolong them as much as possible. Really just not actually engage a fight, just poke from afar with the Corki, with the Varus, with the Nidalee. But if OverClocked are ahead in this game, it will mean that they have a bit more power, a bit more presence to try and force something. You can see that Vidius is trying to find a bit of a gank. If he was to step out of that bush into the second one, he will be spotted by a ward, really nicely placed. But looks like they're not going to attempt this. The wave is pushing towards the inner turret in the bot lane, so going to play it safe, play it cool, and back now, get some items onto this Kalista.
And as we were talking about in the pick and ban phase, for Vasilopita, they wanted to really try and stay even in this game. Oh, wait, actually, Hibonix might be in some trouble.
Yeah, he's in a little bit of trouble. Elise is coming to try and help out, and I think they've spotted it. Also, Lidden has no mana on this Nidalee. Actually, this is a very dead Maokai. Gonna try and get away, but the Keeper's Verdict will lock him up. Won't be an assist coming down. Deathsworm almost in a bit of trouble there, but they weren't wanting to commit onto it. The binding had been missed. This does actually give Unlucky Poro and Bardock a chance to try and get this turret. In fact, they're just going to go into Kalista, and Kalista's by herself. The new passive means that she's not going to do as much damage. Garben taking a lot. He has to heal onto the turret, and he's going to fall down. Unlucky Poro able to secure that one in the mid lane. Deathsworm is in trouble. He has secured a kill onto General Shadow, but it's going to be traded back onto Vidius on this Elise. Nicely played by, really it was nicely played by Vitsa, because they're able to get the turret, able to get kills onto their carries. You know, they lost one in the end. Now they're going to go into Vassal. He's going to be in trouble, has to flash over the wall to this dragon. Can't follow this one up now because he's got the backup of Zed. But that is a summoner down that they were able to trade very easily.
Yeah, it was really well played by both teams, and I actually liked that this one were able to get a kill, allowing him to actually get something out of that trade in the mid lane, the kill for a kill, and they also got a kill in the bottom lane, so it's not too bad for them.
What I was trying to say, like, it's hard to talk about patch notes whilst you play casting, but in 6.6, I believe it was, they changed Kalista's passive so that she does way less damage when she's not with her paired summoner. So obviously you pair with your support so that you can get the extra damage. When Kalista is not with her paired summoner, she has slower attack speed, I believe it is, which means she puts out less damage. Also gives her less mobility because her jumping around is linked to how fast her attack speed is. So by Garben being alone, it gave Bardock and Unlucky Poro the perfect opportunity to dive the Kalista, because she doesn't have the mobility to get away. She can't stack up those Ren stacks very quickly. It's an easy turret dive, especially with an Alistair who's got the Unbreakable Will to just tank up the whole turret shots. It means they get the turret, they get the kill, they get the pressure in the bot lane, leads to their first Drake at 12 minutes, and it immediately means that Vassal are staying in this game through some really nice proactive plays.
Yeah, and we saw, actually there were a poster on Reddit that showed, oh wait, Gaben taking a lot of damage.
This is great for Vassal. They're poking down, and they're going to poke off one Kickman off this turret as well as Garben. This is their team composition coming to fruition. They stand here at a turret, sieging down, poking out the minion wave, clearing it much quicker than OverClocked can do it, and then they also poke out the enemy whilst they're doing it, which means that with the double AD carry comp that they have, and Nidalee as well to buff up the attack speed, they can siege these turrets really well. Hypnix is going to try and defend it. He's going to fall down. This is where the Maokai and the Alistair come into play, because if someone does decide to do that, they lock him on out and they get bursted. And now that's going to be the mid lane turret taking a huge amount of damage, and Vasilopita, they're making their team composition known.
So well played by Vasilopita, playing to their win condition of poking out and then utilizing Maokai and Alistair for disengaging and engaging if they want to do so as well. So really well played, and it's nice to see them play to that standard of poking out. Now Fidus tries to steal away, the Raptor will not quite get it, now he might be in some trouble.
Yeah, Bardock's looking for an engage, but they know they can't go too deep as Zed's lurking around the corner. Does use that shadow to try and poke out a little bit of damage. Doesn't quite connect it though, unfortunately, so Unlucky Poro are going to get healed up by Bardock. The Alistair going rawr, and somehow that heals them. But Yeah, you know, but Vasilopita, they're doing a good job at the moment. They're utilizing their strengths, and I don't think Overclocked were quite ready for it. Like, they've got a team composition that can basically break that siege cycle that Vasilopita has. Use the Z, try and burst down a target, or if a Morgana or Binding lands, or at least Cocoon lands, then they can basically break that cycle by taking out one of the main damage dealers. They just weren't ready for that initial cycle to begin, which meant that because Vasilopita were able to rotate and group quicker, that mid lane turret is going to go down next time they put some proper siege into it.
Yes, that is definitely true. And now for Vasilopita, they are ahead in the early game, which were dream thinking for them, because they just wanted to go even. And with them being ahead, that means that they will be the ones dictating this show. They will be the ones having the necessary damage to start up their sieges. And this is exactly what they have been doing for a little while now. Haven't exactly gotten a tower out of it, but they are playing to the way that they should be, and they are only going to get stronger. Their poke is only going to get better, and for Overclocked, they're only going to get to be having a harder and harder time against this poke composition that Vasilopita has been built together. And now 24th has been completed by Unlucky Poro, so towers will also go down if he is allowed to have just a little bit of time on top of it.
Yeah, absolutely. That Trinity Force power spike by Unlucky Poro being unlocked means that they can group up and try and make something happen. Was a bit of a DC coming out of Overclocked there. Had to reset the connection of Genre Shadow, but they've done it. Now they're back into this game. Have to see if Overclocked are ready for this siege cycle that's coming. Nidley setting up some wards around this Rift Herald. It will give them a lot of sieging potential when it comes time to do that. They're actually going to try and find a kill onto one kick man if possible. Unlucky Poro has to be careful here. Dodges the cocoon, dodges the binding as well. So the main CC down. That's nicely played by them, and able to head on into this mid lane turret. They do have a bit of a gold lead. It's only 200 gold because Overclocked right now, they're CSing a lot better than Vasilopita. The turret difference that Vasilopita have is keeping them in the lead, but if they're not able to secure the farm, they're trying to... oh wow, the flash forward, but Death Swarm! Spear and spear alike, and this is the poke. Now the Lidden's going to try and find a kill, flashes away from the shackles of Morgana. There's going to be the turret going down in the mid lane. You have to be careful with your Elise at the moment. This could be risky to head on in. Poppy's here as well. Maokai doesn't have teleport, so has to walk onto this mid lane. They're going to play it safe, play it cool. Maybe even look for an engage onto Zed if he takes the long route. Ah, the ultimate from Varus not quite connecting. Chains of Corruption goes wide, but they still have the poke available to them, even the sapling from Maokai that they can chuck on out. And this turret, this minion wave poking on into it, this should be it falling. It'll be their second, third, fourth turret on the game. In fact, they flash forward, Twisted Advance onto the Elise, and they lock him on up, so turret and a kill. Now they can head on over to this Rift Herald buff, get it onto one of their carries, try and continue their siege and poke even more so.
Again, they're playing to their win condition, and if they can get the Rift Herald, if they can get the buff called Doom's Eve, then their poke will just be so much better, because their minions will be stronger, and they can really siege up. They can really start to try and group force Overclocked away from their towers, and really rack up a gold differential. So with that Doom's Eve going over to Nidalee, you just need to start grouping up. Nidalee is such a huge part of this poke, so is Varus, so is Corgi. Put them all together, you have a very strong siege.
Absolutely. Sunfire Cape now completed by this Maokai. Rod of Ages completed by Nidalee as well. So going to be stacking on up, getting the armor onto this team conversation. There's not too much AP damage. I guess Nidalee does, Elise does put out a lot for Overclocked, but she hasn't really had the opportunity to do much. Might try and find a cocoon now, and is looking for it. Can he land it? No, Lidden has so much movement speed with that Doom's Eve buff, but they're looking for an assassination. Zed was running on over with the Ghost Blade. and it kind of feels like Overclocked aren't 100% sure on how they can make this work. They know that they have to stop the cycle of this poke and siege before it happens, and they're trying to find the picks, but they're not quite able to do so. They need to start clearing out wards, get these sweepers onto their members. They've got 2 already, but they need to get the upgraded ones going now. That's going to be at least caught out. Chains of Corruption dodged by the Repel. Nice play there by Fidias. Looks like Barddog wants some more, playing that big tanky front line. But with the dragon spawning, this could be an opportunity to pick up the second dragon of the game. I think that Overclocked either need to go for a turret now, or they need to try and contest this dragon before it happens.
Overclocked, they need to... Well, now they need to go for a tower, because the dragon has already gone down. So, they need... Next time, if they want to go against the dragon, then they need to go there and they need to force it immediately. They don't have time to get poked. And I think we're looking at a fight here.
Yeah, this is it. Hypnix goes in, but the rest of his team are retreating, trying to get onto Barddog and onto Maokai as well. The shackles from Morgana are going to lock up internal range. They're able to take him down. The ultimate wasn't enough, but now they're trying to get away. Keeper's Verdict will knock Varus out of this fight. Hypnix is by himself. I don't think he's going to escape this one, and Barddog will say you definitely won't. So top lane is down for both teams. It is actually Vasilopita who come out of this strongest. Their health bars are much more healthier, I guess, than that of Overclocked. Now Deathsworm versus the Elise, and Fieres is going to fall once more. Deathsworm gets his 3rd kill. This is the mid lane turret going to fall. Most likely Vasilopita picking up their 5th turret of the game. That second dragon buff, so good. The extra burn damage that comes from auto attacks, able to give Vasilopita even more power to their composition. And now they've got 5k gold at 20 minutes. It doesn't sound like much, but we're used to casting maybe some lower elo games here, Benvarmeren and this is a Masters game. This is, you know, true League of Legends. These guys know how to abuse power spikes and how to abuse gold leads, and we're starting to see this coming.
You are so right. This game is more controlled than the 2 games we had already, especially the first game. Actually, sorry, it's more controlled than the 1 game we had. I forgot that we had some technical issues between the first game and the second game. So technically, this is the third game, but the second game, as the second game.
We get it.
Yeah. Anyways, I'll stop rambling. You're right, it's more controlled, and it's so nice to see Vasilopita play this game as a true poke composition, just controlling the game, controlling the pace, knowing that they can wave clear with Varus, with Corgi, but hold on, one Kickman might want to induce some internal rage.
Yeah, I don't think he can actually fight Maokai here. The ultimate from Maokai, the Vengeful Maelstrom, it gives him 20%, I guess, damage reduction. General Shadow is actually going to get locked up here by the Change of Corruption. Gets cleansed out of the Binding as well, so that's an easy kill for Deathsworm. But look at Eternal Rage's build. He's got Sunfire Cape, Glacial Shroud, as well as a Warden's Mail, just for good measure. That's so much armor on this Maokai. In fact, it's 197 armor at 22 minutes, and Zed doesn't have that much armor penetration. You know, 20% armor penetration isn't really that much when you don't have the AD really built up. Oh, Deathsworm flash forward once
again.
Gets it with the Q. What a nice play. Now Hypnix is looking to try and find something to happen, but TP being channeled by Eternal Range, dodging the Keeper's Verdict, so they're going to be able to get onto this second Outer's turret. They'll take it down extremely quickly. They're going to look for an engage now onto Vidius. They lock him up with the Twisted Advance, poking him on out. Genre Shadow locked up by Change of Corruption once more. That's a dead Morgana. One Kickman actually able to pick up Unlucky Poro, but a Twisted Advance into the other side of the map. Eternal Range went too far. Able to trade it on back. Hypnix now going to go low. Headbutt from Barddog knocks him backwards, and Lidden going to try and find a kill. Going to get locked up by Garbend though. Triple kill for Deathsworm. Garbend equalizing the fight. A 3 for 4 in the end. Going in favor of Vasilopita. Not quite the fight they wanted. Trading almost equally isn't that great, but they did pick up a turret, and Vasilopita, they are making their presence known and are still getting their objectives with these fights.
That's definitely true. They did pick up the turret as well, so obviously the trade isn't that bad for them, and they get a lot of kills as well, and they get a lot of kills onto Deathsworn, so that is the most important thing. The problem was that Unlucky Poro didn't have a QSS, so he weren't able to survive against Zed that just basically were able to use his ultimate onto Unlucky Poro and he went down. So if they can again start to siege up, maybe save Unlucky Poro this time, then the trade will obviously be better, and they have to look at poking out first. But I've been praising them all game, and I'm sure that they will be able to poke out first, because that is something that they have shown that they can definitely do.
Yeah, they did go a little bit too deep without really setting up for a fight there. Their team composition means that they actually have to do a wave of poking for a little bit before they can go on for these full metal engages, and One Kickman was able to abuse the fact that they hadn't set up for that. So that was the reason that OverClocked were able to get a lot out of that. In fact, they got a lot onto their carries as well, which could really spell disaster for Vasilopita if OverClocked are able to find an engage which is favorable for them again. Dragon's going to be spawning in 35 seconds, so Vision now being set up by Vasilopita are actually looking for a full-on engage. There's the Unbreakable Will onto this Alistair. The Twisted Advance from Malkoik was prevented by the Black Shield, so that's a big cooldown down. The Unbreakable Will not going to be up for this Dragon. Looks like Vasilopita are going to instead look to just try and siege onto a turret. They're going to find Genre Shadow as well, who fails his flash over the wall, so Lydon will secure that kill fairly easily. That's a member down now for OverClocked. Makes sieging of this turret a little bit easier. Death time is 30 seconds on this Morgana. They're going to give it a go.
So now they will be pushing up, and I actually felt that this engage were a little bit forced to start with, but they found that pick onto Jandra of Shadow, and now they will also be able to get an inhibitor. They can rotate back to the Dragon unless OverClocked wants to fight this.
Yeah, OverClocked want to fight this. Hypnix trying to lock up Eternal Range. He is going to get onto him, but he gets popped by the Vengeful Maelstrom. They get another kill onto the Callista, going for a Kickman. They get that one as well. A 3-0. They only lose Eternal Rage, in fact. Now Morgana is up, as is Phidias, but they're looking to try and push out some more. They've got the siege composition and they've got the AD damage. They might be able to take out a Nexus turret before the timers are able to tick over. Maybe even the other Nexus turret. They're looking to go for it. They've got Unbreakable Will up for this. Alistair is going to pop it and going to tank this turret up. The second Nexus turret falls, and Vasilopita are looking for the finish. They take out Elise on the way. Legendary Deathsworm looking for another kill into Genre Shadow. Unlucky Poro not quite able to get that, but the Nexus falls, and Vasilopita show how dominant they are. They're going to progress to the semi-finals, knocking out OverClocked.
Very well played by Vasilopita. They showed how to play a pick composition, and they showed it very, very well. They just kept on poking, they kept sieging, and they played true to their win conditions. And they played early game really well, because it allowed them to not fall behind. With them not falling behind, they were able to complete a lot of the items and then go from there. Very well played.
Absolutely. You said it. They played to their team's strengths. And because of that, they were able to lock out OverClocked. They did a really good job there. They really knew exactly what they were doing. Able to get the kills onto Deathsworn, who became really OP towards the end of the game. 10, 1, and 5 on this Varus. Able to get that Mirror Mana fully upgraded as well. Had the Ghost Blade, Last Whisper, probably going to build into a Lord Dominic's regard just to deal with the Poppy tank. But at the end of the day, they never really got to that late game stage. They were able to force objectives early, and that'll be them progressing to the semifinals.
Yeah, and now that they are going to the semifinals, I'll be very interested in seeing if they want to play another poke composition, because they played it so very well, and it's not very often we see a poke composition, so I would love to see that coming out again. I think they played it really, really well, and I'd love to see it again. I've said it 3 times, and now the 4th time, I'd love to see it being played again.
Absolutely. Well, we'll have to see if they do play it again. Going to go to a short break as we let the rest of the teams catch up. Different Dimensions taking on CU Romania and Instinct Esports taking on Wonder Stag Esports. GameSpace versus WL Gaming League. All these teams fighting for a spot in the semi-finals. We'll be back in a little bit to see which one does make it, so stick around. This is the Southeast Europe Championship online qualifiers, and we'll be back in a little bit.